Hi, everybody. This is Dear Mama Sal. And today we're going to be talking about conflict resolution. And I don't know if you ever have that happen to you. Most of us have, all right, where you get into a fight with somebody. And so, what I wanted to do was to just make sure that we talked about it a little bit, but also I wanted to just see how many of you. Oh, so how many of you actually the fight is with yourself? And, so that's quite an interesting thing as well. And, we'll be talking about how that affects. So not only do you have conflict with other people, I'd like to suggest that a lot of us have conflict even with ourselves. And that is something that I definitely want to throw some light on as well. So today we are going to be um, chatting about that. But what before I do that, I just very quickly wanted to give you an update. We're spending the whole year talking a little bit about emotional intelligence. Most of us know what IQ is. It is our intellectual intelligence. But EQ is how we handle things emotionally. And so, from that perspective, we're spending the year, and maybe more than a year, looking at different aspects of that. So, if ever you wondered, well, why do I react this way? The chances are that you might be highly intelligent or not, but you may not have grown your emotional intelligence to keep up with it. Excuse me. And so that is what we're busy working on. Now, for those of you who have been regular viewers, you know the rules, and there are very few. What we do is, if you come into the chat, and you're more than welcome to do that. If you're watching it on the replay, please feel free to leave comments. But if you come into the chat, and I don't know you, or don't know you very well, I will probably ask if I can repeat what you are asking me or what you're saying. The regulars, I don't do that with because they know what the system is, and they know that if they're going to put chat up there, then it's okay for me to repeat it. So that's really important. The other thing I wanted to do was just give you a tip for the day. And the tip for today has to do with coffee machine filters. You know, the little pods that you put into charcoal filters? I found out this week, to my amazement, that you can reuse them. And very simple. All you do is take them out of your coffee maker, let them totally dry, just put them on a windowsill and let them dry out for a few days. Once they're totally dry, put it in a toaster oven and just let it cook for an hour at 300 degrees. You basically will have everlasting filters if you just keep rotating a couple of them. So I don't know about you, but that to me was like, wow, that's simple. Why wouldn't I do it? So, in terms of emotional and intelligence, and particularly conflict resolution, we all have clashes of thought. It's perfectly normal. All right. Your idea, my idea, and they don't necessarily agree. So, I want you to understand that everything we talk about today is not that there's right or wrong in this. This is just like if you've ever thought to yourself, I wish I'd handled that a little bit better, then we're going to try and give you a couple of tips here. But before we do that, did you know that there are different sorts of ways of reacting to conflict? And so, what I want to do here is just to give you some idea of what those are and to see which one you think you might fit into. Because I don't know about you, but it's like, okay, but which one am I? Well, only you would really know that. One is what you might tell me, but the other is the truth. So the five are, and I try to do it in terms of what songs would they be singing, right? So the first one would be collaborating. Those are people who need people. If you some of you might be old enough to remember that song by Barbara Streisand. So if you're always thinking about how to one and one makes three, if you're a synergistic sort of person, then the chances are you do your conflict resolution by collaborating. There are some that do it by competing. I'd like to think of them singing "If I Ruled the World." It's all about win for them. It is all about win. They need to win. And really, that gets them into a lot of extra hot water. Then there's the avoiding group. I think the song I thought about was "Silence is Golden." Um, like rather than have a disagreement, they walk away. And then there's the accommodating. I thought of Lionel Richie's song "Say You, Say Me," say it together. It's the way it should be. And so accommodating is somebody who can, just not be too stuck in any one position. And that's a nice place to be. And then lastly, compromising. And if you like, I thought about the Beatles song, "We Can Work It Out." So bearing in mind that we have those 5 different sorts of ways of dealing with conflict, excuse me, I'm just going to go through each of them for you and talk a little bit about how they play out. For example, collaborating, people who need people, collaborating are inclined to work jointly on an activity. And they're inclined to produce or create something one on one. It's just like it's not your view or my view. It's like, okay, that's your idea, this is my idea, let's see if we can come up with a third idea. So very important. Those sort of people are very useful, particularly in business. If you're responsible for managing people, that's a really good way to be, which is to hear both sides of the story and see if you can collaboratively come up with an answer. Competing, the "If I Ruled the World" song, that's for them, conflict resolution is about a fight. It's a guy, you push me, I push back, you push me, I push back. Somebody has to win, and therefore somebody has to lose. And that gets very confrontational. And I must admit, I used to be very big into that at one point in my life. And now I really just can't be bothered to do it. It just doesn't win me the place where I want to be. Excuse me. Avoiding. Silence is golden. That's where you keep away or you stop yourself from participating. Now, that's okay if you've done that for a reason, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But if you're just doing it rather than have a confrontation, you may want to listen to a few of the tips that I've got here. The accommodating style, the "say you, say me" sort of person, excuse me, they will fit in with somebody else's wishes or needs. They would hold your wishes or needs above theirs. Now, obviously, there's some good points and bad points about that, and so you might want to think about that. Hi, Charlotte. And you may want to think about that one if that is who you are. And then the compromising, and I sort of double check the real definition of that. A compromising is an agreement in an argument in which people involved reduce their demands or change their opinion in order to agree. Hi there, welcome to the new viewer there. Do you pronounce it Hertot or Hero? Hi, good to see you. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. So let me know. Write it for me phonetically. All right, so those are the different sorts of styles of conflict resolution. And now what we're going to do is really have a look at how they play out. Before I do that, I just wanted to give a heads up. As far as I know, we don't have a birthday this week, but we've got a couple coming up. Hertot. Okay, thank you very much. Where are you from, Hertot? What country? What part of the world? It's an unusual name. That means you're really interesting. I always find it fascinating to see the names that people come in on. And welcome is the most important thing. And how did you find us? If you get a chance, too many questions, right? So, whatever your conflict resolution style is, there are going to be a few things I want you to remember. And before I do that, I just wanted to give a heads up. Jamie's birthday is coming up on the 24th. And then, of course, Kerry's is coming up on Halloween. We always remember Kerry's because of that. And then we got Nana's coming up at the beginning of November. So just for those of you who are longtime members, the first thing that I would recommend, well, yeah, I still think this would be the first thing I would recommend. When you get yourself into what is a conflict, it's your cat's name. Well, hi, Hertot. Meow. All right. Which would you prefer that I use? You get to choose. So think about the fact when you get to conflict, the number one question I ask myself now, it's not the number one question I used to ask myself. When I start feeling that I'm in a conflict without, sometimes I get there without even meaning to. The one question I ask myself quietly is, do I want to create more drama? Because, how many of you have found that out? Being in conflict with somebody is, there's a lot of drama attached to it. And I am doing everything I can to reduce the drama in my life. And so when I get into conflict now, and I still do, one of the things that I ask myself is, do I want to create more drama? Because that is something that answer will affect everything else I do. You see, if I don't want to create more drama, then the chances are I'm not going to end up in a competing situation. I'm going to be more thoughtful about what I say and how I say it. So that is why I recommend when you go, whoops, I don't know what happened here, but we just ended up in a conflict. Just say to yourself, what do I need to do not to escalate this? I don't want to create more drama. There's enough already. So then I also decide whether this particular issue, whatever it is worth drama. All right. So that's about pick your battles. And if you're going, wow, I don't know how this got out of hand, but is it really worth fighting? Is it something I want to fight on, or do I need to fight on it today? Now, to give you an example of that, some of you know that I had my brother come visit me a couple of weeks ago, and he is a very controlling sort of personality, and so there were a couple of issues that came up where, the hair on the back of my head stood up and I thought, wow, here we go. And then I realized I didn't have to get into a win-lose situation. I could just not worry about it. And I kept saying to myself, he's only here for a week. Do I need to upset myself and him for this? And the answer 9 times out of 10 was no, but there were a couple of issues where I said yes. I needed to set a boundary, and that was a different thing. So I didn't get into arguments I didn't need to. If he wanted to tell me that black was white, I'd go, really, that's interesting. Never thought of it that way. If he wanted to tell me that there was a right way to load my dishwasher, I would just go, wow, that's interesting that you do it that way. And, it's just like, I just made sure that I decided not to participate. I hope that makes sense to people. But if you do decide to engage. If you do decide, okay, this is, I need to say something. That's interesting. Sarah is saying that, the older she gets, the less, the fewer arguments she gets into. So that is I found that too. I mean, I don't know what age group you are, Sarah, but my reality is I really can't be bothered with a lot of them anymore. It's just like, if you want to believe that, you go ahead. It's not, I start to realize that maybe I have a different slant on things because of the experiences I've had, or the years that I've lived, as Sarah's saying. I've lived a few years, therefore I have a different view on things. And I'm certain, my 20-year-old self would have thought about things very differently. So, I'm sitting here with my 72-year-old self and go, yeah, it really isn't worth it. I don't, let them think that if they want to. And maybe one day they will find out that there is another way of looking at that. Now then, this is perhaps the most difficult one for people to do. So after you've sort of thought about it, do I want to get into this? If you've decided that it is worth getting into conflict, then the first thing you need to do is talk to that person. Well, in fact, I'd like to say the first thing you need to do is listen to that person. So, but sometimes we need to start by talking, because otherwise we shut down. Have any of you found that? That when you get into conflict, you actually shut down. Like the walls go up and you're immediately on the defensive. And it's like, where did that come from? And so part of it is, I find that if I go, okay, I'm listening to you, carry on. I find by saying something, it relaxes me a little bit. And also, I am aware of my body language. Because, if you start going, huh? Your body language will speak far louder than any words. So I try to work really hard at going, okay, that's interesting. Carry on. Let me see if I can understand where you're coming from. And so listen, and do it in a non-threatening way. Be aware of your body language. Smile. Go, okay, I'm listening. Tell me more. So that they don't feel they need to attack or defend, that they can just tell you what their issue is. Remember, it's just their opinion, until you decide to take any action on it. So when I listen, I try to listen and not defend. It's very difficult for me. How many of you have, you can feel the words running across your tongue, and you need to shut your mouth and not say them, they come out anyway. That is the hardest lesson, is to learn to shut your mouth before those words get out. And the thing that I try to remember is, once those words come out of my mouth, there is no way I can take them back. So now I am a lot more cautious about listening and making sure I understand what really is going on. And sometimes I have to ask 2 or 3 questions to find that out. And I'll give you an example of that later. But, it's like, if you don't listen properly, you've got a much better chance of misunderstanding what the issue is to start with. To me as well, you also have the right to say to them, okay, I hear you. But I don't want to answer this in a place of emotion. So I'd like to go away and think about that for a while. And maybe, we can get back, or I can send you an email and let you know what my thinking is. If you know that you are likely to get triggered and escalate, be very careful. And also keep it very personal. I would like this to happen. And would that be okay with you? I just don't want to get this coming from a place of high emotion. and being triggered and so forth. I don't want to give you a knee-jerk reaction or answer. I would rather think about it and see what's going on. But that is an agreement, right? You're going to need to come to an agreement. Hi, Nyasha. We're talking about conflict resolution. The other thing that if you're listening to them, listen for things you can agree on. The chances are they've said 2 or 3 things. Maybe you totally disagree with one, and that gets your hair on the back of your neck going. But the chances are there are 2 or 3 things they said that you agree with. So you might think about, where can you agree? Like, okay, I heard you say that I'm a lazy slob. There are times I'd have to agree with you on that one. And don't be all defensive. Just go, there are times where I'd have to agree with you on that one, especially when I don't tidy up my room, or I leave plates in the wrong place, or whatever. Hi there, Kimmy. And so, find ways to agree. And then deal with the ones that you don't agree with later. Okay, so find areas where you can agree. The other thing that most people forget is, let's say this is a boss-employee situation. All right, maybe they say, I don't feel you're working hard enough. And you go, okay, thank you for that input. In what way? Can you give me an example? You see, what happens is that, and this happens a lot with us, we hear the words, you're not working hard enough, and we put our own interpretation into that. And so what I want you to be very careful of is not to do that. Make sure you understand what they mean by that. So I hear you say, I'm not working hard enough. What behavior do you see that you would like to see changed? All right. And then hear them out. Try not to interrupt them. And then go back again and say, okay, I hear you say that you'd like me to be at work 5 minutes before start time. Did I understand you correctly? You don't go, well, my hours are 9 to 5 and I'm here at 9. Well, if you get there at 9, but you still have to go to the washroom, and you still have to go to your locker, and you still have to do this, and you still have to you don't start work at 9. You start work at about 10 after. So that may be their issue, which is, I expect you to be here ready to work at 9, not busy getting a cup of coffee or doing whatever. Yeah. It's funny, Kimmy. That's why I thought I would talk about that a little bit. Kimmy's saying that I'm guilty of doing that when I think I am being attacked. Yeah, I want to tell you that I fall into that trap a lot, even now. And so that's why I'm twice as careful now, that I think before I react. And I also decide, is this worth a fight? So the other thing is, when you say to somebody, I'm hearing that you say that you'd like da, 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 da. Can you give me an example of that? Gives you time to settle down. And also, it gives you a framework of what it is that they actually are talking about. I have found that so often what they're talking about isn't what I am thinking at all. Yeah, Kimmy, or you get offended. I so agree with you. All right. And the reason is because, let's be honest, we've been attacked so many times we come to expect it. Do any of you relate to that? Where, you've been judged and you have been put down and you have been not understood so many times that you now, as soon as anybody even starts on this stuff, you just, you go from quite calm into the red zone. It's just like, yeah. So what I want you to do is, if that's what sorry about this, I got allergies going again. If that happens to you, then think first. All right? Do what you can to think first and not react first. And, especially at work. I want to tell you that I have, in my time in the days when I still worked for somebody, I was amazed how many times I'm going, wait a minute, you're asking me to do what? Just so that I understand. Just give me an example. It really helps delay the reaction and also gives you a better framework about what it is that they have an issue with. Does that make sense to everybody? And again, as they're giving you the example, be honest with yourself. If you go, I do that, then as they're telling you, have that action, all right? You sort of go, yeah, I've done that. I'm so sorry. I hope you're not seeing it as a regular thing, but I have done that. Yeah. And I'm working on improving it. By the way, what would you like to see me do? Yeah. Kimmy's saying that when somebody is in conflict with her, she feels really hurt and doesn't want to talk. Well, that's what we're working on, Kimmy. That's the very reason I want to do this, because I don't think you're the only one. Yeah, Jodi's saying she's a work in progress with that. She's been quick to get triggered when I feel attacked, all right? And I tend to cut with my words when I feel I've been put into a corner. Yeah, I'm a, don't put me in a corner because I'll come out fighting person as well, Jodi, as you know. So one of the things that I would say is this is not about let's change it, and be perfect tomorrow. Let's think about these things, all right? Let's think about, oh, I can feel that I got triggered, so that's a conflict coming up. And as soon as you think that, go, okay, what do I need to do? I need to think first. Not talk. I need to think first to get control. And then I need to listen second. Okay, tell me again what you just said, and please, if you can, give me an example. Now, Kimmy's talking about something so real, and I thank you for that, Kimmy, because I totally relate to that. Kimmy's saying, when I feel really hurt and do not want to talk, I don't want to talk. And then she said, or I can talk about it for years. Right? Now, Kimmy, excuse me, you're saying that it's a bad habit. It's just a habit you got into, and you can improve on it. And that's what we're looking for. We're not looking to become, the next mediator at the UN. We're looking at, can I improve my skill? Right? And we all have ways of doing that. All right. So Niesha's saying that as well. She said, I would find it difficult to speak to everyone involved because they're all up against me. Right. Now, Beth is saying, I love it when some people push my buttons on purpose. And I get no reaction. Some people just love to push other people's buttons because they love the drama. And Beth is saying, I don't play that game. And Jodi's saying, when Lionel, that's her husband, gets into an issue on the phone, I hear him say, I'm going to hand the phone to my wife. And you probably don't want that to happen if you want to go home by 5 tonight. So the thing is, listen to what Beth is saying. If you don't engage, if you don't perpetuate the fight, it's a lot easier. You just go, I just need to hear them out. You don't have to respond. If you're at work, it's slightly different. So Beth, it's a wonderfully freeing feeling, isn't it? And I'm amazed how many times I've had people rant and rave at me, and I just wait them out. Yes, don't put gas on the fire. We're responsible for our behavior, not theirs, right? Remember that we are responsible for our behavior. So if we automatically get triggered and then attack, you know, is that the behavior you really want? If you've got, I'm thinking, Kimmy, you've got members of your family that don't treat you very well. And if they say, "I think you're a idiot," and you go, "Really? Thank you for your opinion. I really need to go and do something today. So I know we thought we might be spending time together, but I'm afraid that I need to go." It's just like, why would you spend time with somebody who talks to you like that, right? And somebody said to me once, "Well, you put up with those manners, I wasn't." And I go, "Yep, I was. You're right." When you come to dinner uh, at my house, I do not expect you to spend your time on your phone. It's my house, my rules. So this is called, if I see you, see if it's an important message, I don't react. But if I see you react every time your phone, and your phone's going every 30 seconds, I probably will say, "Why don't we just put our phones into the center here so we're not distracted with them? Because we're here to have dinner." As you've heard me say, I've actually been to one house where before you sit down to dinner, they hand round a basket and you put your phone into the basket and the basket goes into another room. When the meal is finished, you can go and get your phone or the basket comes back. But, normally the young people just go and get their phones. But, I think that's a great rule. And it's, I am certain we have become so connected to our phones. I was having lunch with somebody this week, and every 30 seconds their phone was going. But they're a realtor, so I know that's important to their livelihood. But it is very distracting. But is it worth the conflict? No, it wasn't worth the conflict for me. So let's presume that what they're saying is something you don't agree with. I think in a lot of cases, what we don't have are the right words. So what we come up with is, "No, you're wrong. You're stupid. You're blah, 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 blah." How many of you just red zone? And the trick is, as Beth is saying, the trick is to keep control of you. Beth, isn't that the truth, right? Beth is saying, if I had a choice to lose my phone or my wallet, she said she'd be more concerned if she lost her phone. Have any of you actually left the house without your phone? I've done it a number of times where I thought I picked it up and I didn't. And every now and then I say, something, in the old days, you could live all day without your phone. So why don't you just give yourself a break? So what happens if this issue that they're talking about is really important to you and you disagree? So here's the thing that I would recommend you say, which is, I don't feel the same way about the XYZ issue. Can we agree to disagree? Or would you prefer that we find some time to discuss it some more? Because I don't think today would be a good day to discuss it, because I would like some time to think about it and see if I can come up with some possible solutions. Now, does that sound confrontational, or does that sound like, okay, fine, I hear you and I want to think about it some more? You see, when you're part of the solution, it takes a lot of the conflict out of it. Yeah, it's interesting. Kimmy's saying about the phone thing, that if she leaves without her phone, then her family gets mad. Well, the family's going to have to live with that, right? I want to tell you, I'm amazed how many people say, uh, or I can hear them phone me on my home line, and then they'll phone me on this. And when I eventually do answer them, and I find out it isn't an emergency, I'm going, really? When you phone my home line and then my cell, I presume this is an emergency. Oh, well, I just wanted to talk to you. Yeah. Well, obviously, this isn't convenient. Otherwise, I would have answered the home phone. So um, I'll be available in about 3 hours if you need to talk about it. Niesha saying, I can't live without my devices, my tablet, my phone, and my computer. I am always on it. Well, that means that you are controlled by your devices. Now, we all use them, Niesha. Don't get me wrong. We live in a world where our tablets, our phone, and our computers are part of our life. And I want to say, may we give thanks for that, right? That we have all this technology. But it's a bit like, my memory of having cigarettes, being a smoker, was I couldn't go from one room to the other without my packet of cigarettes. How many of you cannot go from one room to the other without your phone? I want you to think about that. The interesting thing that I've always said with men is that men carry their phones with them much more easily than women because men's clothes have pockets. Women have a lot of clothes that don't have pockets. So if you think about it, it's more inconvenient for a woman to take her phone with her everywhere. All right, so listen to this. Beth is saying the big truck with 1,000 pieces of merchandise, this is the store where she works, came a day and a half early. I panicked and then told him he has to wait an hour so I can get the stockroom ready. That he should have called. Right, the should thing, Beth, that's a guilt thing, right? Rethink of how you might say that, which is, hey, we would have been perfectly ready if you'd given me, if you'd given us a heads up first. So just go and have a coffee, do whatever. It'll take us about an hour and a half to clear the stockroom, which we had planned to do today anyway. But we'll just make it a bigger priority right now. Or you can come back a day and a half later when the time when we expected it would also be an option, Beth. Um, the interesting thing is, Kimmy's saying, how many of you have done that? How many of you have got rid of your landline and only have a cell now? I'm afraid I haven't. I haven't got that far. I still have a landline. And I'm still happier with my landline in a lot of cases. I think maybe because I get a lot of international calls. What's a landline? Yeah, exactly, Beth. All right. And so Sarah's also saying she doesn't have a landline. And Jody does have one. Yes, I'm not surprised. Kids don't even know what a landline is. Yeah, I know. And they don't know what a Walkman was either. So, how is should a guilt word? Okay, let me put it this way. Let's say I meet you tomorrow, Nyasha, and I go, oh, it's so nice to see you, Nyasha. You should have worn a dress. Do you understand? As soon as you hear the word should, it's a guilt thing. All right? So what did Beth say? You should have, what did she say? You should have called. It's guilt. It's a guilt thing. You can. It's much less offensive if you say, "Hey, you know something? It's great that you're here, and if you could have given a heads up about an hour ago, we probably would be ready." for you, even though it's a day and a half early. But you've got a choice now. Give the guy a choice. You can either wait for an hour and a half while we clear the stock room and make room for that stuff, or you can come back in a day and a half, which is when we were expecting the order. Which would you prefer? All right. So the should is, you know something, Nasha? I say to people, be very aware of how many times people say should, must. Must is another one, Nasha. You must do X, Y, and Z. And you know what I say to people? The last time I checked, I was an adult and I get to choose. I do not must do anything. Oh, you have to. No, I don't. I'm an adult. I can choose to. Now, do I have to stop at the stop sign? Quite honestly, it's choice, isn't it? The consequences for not doing so are pretty nasty. But you understand, I don't have to look left, right, and left again, or right, left, and left, right again, depending which country you live in, when I cross the road. But it's safer that I do. So when people say to me, well, you really must do this, I go, no, actually, I don't. What? I don't have to do it. And the word must infers that I have to. Oh, you must see that movie. No, I might choose to, but I don't have to. you know. And so when anybody uses those controlling words on me, I stop them. And most times I'm amazed how people react to that. And how many people tell me, well, I didn't mean it as a guilt thing. I went, really? Think about that. I'm not a 5-year-old. I'm an adult. Or you really should load your dishwasher this way. Really? That would be your opinion. I actually think that the way I load it works fine for me. But I understand you have a different way, and that's your way, and that's fine for you. End of story. So what I would like to suggest is wherever you can, use calming feedback. Try and lower the temperature of this conflict. So use words like, wow, I'm so sorry to hear you feel that way, and mean it. Not, well, you're stupid to feel that way and that's not fair because da da da. You just go, wow, I'm so sorry to hear that you feel that way. Or I'm so sorry you saw that and you felt that I wasn't doing my fair share. And what you can follow up with was, now that I know, I can work towards finding a solution for that. Thank you so much for letting me know. You see, if you thank people for letting them know, that's all they've done, that you haven't agreed to change. Just thank you for letting me know that you feel that way. And then you can decide whether you want to work towards a win-win solution, a solution where you both get what you want. Maybe you put in a bit more this and they put in, they stop judging you quite as much. And the way to do that is always try and check for what one thing could I do? What one thing could I start working on that would let you know that I heard you and I am trying to improve? Does that make sense? Ask them what behavior they want to see. Now, if they call you a stupid idiot and da 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 da, just ignore all the personalized stuff. All right? Because that's what really hurts us, is when it's personal. When they go, well, you're such a lazy so and so, and you just let that go and go, okay, what is it that you're seeing that makes you think I'm lazy? I need to understand that better if you can help me. Can I explain guilt words and the words that don't let you choose? Yes, anything that's a controlling word, Kimmy. As I said, must, have to, should, you ought to do something. Anybody else got any of them that they can think of? Any of those words that you would use on a 5-year-old? That really do not use them on adults. And even if you've got an adult that's behaving like a 5-year-old, all right, if I've got an adult that's behaving like a 5-year-old, I really do try to give them a lot of choices. And if they are calling me a stupid, whatever, I go, wow, I'm sorry that you feel that way. You need to. Yeah, that's another one. Thanks, Jody. Um, I do love that one, Jody. I get this a lot when I'm doing those telephone calls that you have to make so often. Well, you should have done it 2 days ago or 2 months ago. If any of you read any of Dr. Wayne Dyer's books, he is really good about this. You should have done it yesterday. He said, how can anybody possibly should have done it yesterday? You didn't. How about, oh, it's a really pretty, it's pretty rainy today. Yeah, you should have been here 2 days ago. It was beautiful. Well, obviously I wasn't here 2 days ago, or I'm glad to hear it was beautiful, but it doesn't change the fact that it's pretty rainy today. Yes, so whenever you hear those, I need to, you need to, you should have, you ought to, you must, just take a deep breath. Sorry, Jody, I lost who was a wonderful, oh, Wayne Dyer. Yeah, I mean, I want to tell you that I learned more about controlling my stuff from Wayne Dyer than most people. If he started off with a book called Your Erroneous Zones, and everybody thought it was a sex book, and it wasn't. They misread the title, and it was a brilliant title because thousands of people and hundreds of thousands of people bought the book and then found out it was a psychology book. But it was, he talked about how the mistakes that we make. Jody, if you could remind me, I'll put up the link to that book in case anybody wants it. But he talked about where we make all these mistakes in our lives in terms of letting people control us and all these sort of things. And so whenever I get out of step with having people controlling me, I had somebody say to me, my realtor said to me, we don't think we've ever had a client that cared for their tenant as much as you do. Now, how many of you know that there was a hidden agenda in that one? Right? And I said, what I did, I didn't want to get into conflict with it. I said, well, thank you. Yeah. And I would do the same for you. It's just like, I am not going there. And, I just got asked whether I would show the house this weekend. Well, first of all, it's Friday, so they already know I'm not showing it on Saturday. All right. See, this is where they're trying to get clever. Now, I don't know if you guys know, but Sunday here is Thanksgiving Day. And, for Canada. And so it's like, do I want, and Yvonne is cooking. I don't even have to cook. And I'm going, do I want Yvonne to have to go through a showing when she's in the middle of cooking Thanksgiving dinner? I don't know about you. How do you guys feel? Yeah, would you like that? So Sarah is saying, I grew up in a home with no communication skills. They were always arguing. I learned those skills by observing other calm people. Yeah, you see, Sarah, that is the interesting thing. Just ask yourself, do I want to start doing this a little better? Right? I don't expect anybody to change overnight. Right? It's not about changing overnight. It's about how do I do this a little bit better? How do I hold my reaction for 30 seconds? And then work at doing a minute of holding your reaction. It's a bit like I was saying about I'm trying to strengthen my hips by I stand in the kitchen and I hold my hands on my countertop and I hit my knees to my hands. Do you understand what I'm saying? I bring my knee up like this and then I bring this knee up and then this knee up. And when I started, I couldn't lift my left knee up to the counter height. I don't mind telling you that. And this was probably 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 now. I'm now up to doing 50. So I didn't do it immediately. I just did it a little bit. I just did it a little bit at a time. I want to tell you, if any of you want to increase your understanding of this stuff, Wayne Dyer is really good stuff. All right. You could listen to Wayne Dyer for the next year and learn a lot if you want to. Try not to fight what he is saying. But I loved his logic. I loved the fact that he'd say things like, how could I possibly should have been here yesterday? Or, in his book, The Gifts of Isis, I think, where, people say that they're scared of heights. Well, no, heights don't scare you. You are scared of going high. It's not that the high scares you. It doesn't come up and go boo, right? What happens to you as you go high is you get scared. Look at me with the suspension bridge. So what I'm saying is, if you know that you get triggered and you know that you react before you need to, then keep working. Keep working on just improving a little bit. And you'll be amazed, like my leg lifts, right? My knee lifts. You'll be amazed how quickly you improve. And as I was saying, as yesterday, I can choose whether I go and put more fuel on this fire. So I'm hoping that made some sense to some of you. And by the way, if you haven't done so already, make sure you follow us on Facebook and Twitter. I think there's a bell here as well. If you click the bell here, it'll tell you whenever I'm doing a live broadcast. But know that we do 3 different broadcasts. We do Friday lunchtime is a skills one. Friday evening is a laughter one. Well, we normally start with it anyway. And then on Sundays, we do what I call a soul Sunday. And I thought I'd let you guys know that after the Soul Sunday broadcast last Sunday, my resting heart rate went down 3 complete points. So I was quite surprised. Yes, you see, Kerry, you can see that. And hi, Kerry, good to see you. Kerry's saying, I'm not afraid of heights. I'm afraid of falling from great heights. When I went on the suspension bridge, the bridge itself didn't scare me. It was the amount of motion. I got scared when, when my feet were not on solid ground, where the bridge, not the bridge, it was the staircase going onto the bridge, was moving so dramatically that at my age, my balance isn't as good as it used to be. And so I was terrified of falling, and it was raining. I was terrified of slipping and falling down. And that is really what scared me. And so, but the interesting thing was, it took very little to change that thinking. That man who stopped me and said, ma'am, the staircase is the worst part of this. You're already halfway down. The bridge is much more stable. I went, really? And he said, yeah. I said, thank you. And I continued down rather than, continue back up, which is where I was headed when he stopped me. So what I want you all to do is to really think about, do I want to improve this? You don't have to improve a skill, right? You all agree with that, right? I'm not saying you have to do anything. I want to talk to those of you who go, you know something? I overreact. And I would like to change that a little bit. And so if you need to, listen to the first part of this broadcast time and time again until you get really aware of, I need to think first and not get triggered. I need to think before I react. And don't take everything as an insult. I said I would tell you a story. You know, Yvonne and I have been friends for nearly 20 years. Yvonne has a habit of giving me the front end of something, but she doesn't give me the reason. So she'll say, let me give you a for instance. She'll say to me, are you planning to do a wash today? Now, it's her voice tone that sometimes gets me totally confused because that voice tone um, gets me a little triggered. And I might say, well, actually, yeah, it's I understood that our agreement is that I can do a wash every day. It's my washing machine. I can do a wash every day up until this time, and after that, you do yours. What happens is Yvonne doesn't finish the sentence. And I've asked her to work on that, to say, just wondering if you're going to do a wash today because I'd like to fit in an extra one a little earlier. See, that tells me exactly why she's asking me the question. Right. And Niasha, only you can answer that. You know whether you take things personally or not. And, that's what we're all working on, is how not to take things so personally. This is like, it's just, it is their opinion. And so part of, when I was told, we don't have any other clients who care about their tenant as much, um, I know that it works against them, and they don't like that. But it's like, yeah, I do care. I do care about my tenant, and I will continue to care. And I will not disrespect or do things. I didn't even ask Yvonne about Thanksgiving. Why would I? It's like I already know it's Thanksgiving and I know she's cooking. And am I going to let them do a showing in the middle of that? No. So either they do it next week or I don't have that person see my house. And by the way, for those of you who are interested in my moving journey, they tell me that the place that I saw that I like so much just sold yesterday. Yeah, all the things were finalized. So that one is now off my list. Sad. Time to find another one. So, what I want you all to do is to think about, do I want to improve? Nobody's saying you have to improve. Do you choose to start doing a bit of studying so that you can improve? And by the way, actually studying it a little bit will not necessarily fix the problem, but it will give you a better understanding. Thanks, Sharon. Yes, it was meant to be, and so I, you know, I think you know me pretty well, Sharon. This is like, that's sad. Next, and you already know me well enough, Sharon. You've been listening to me long enough. I've got 3 other properties that I've had on a backup list. Yeah, Plan B, C, and D. And now I will start looking at those to find out which one is actually Plan B. Yeah. So I wanted to give you some quotes about this in the hope that maybe that will make some sense to you as well. Mahatma Gandhi said, an eye for an eye will only make the whole world blind. How many of you were taught that? Somebody hurts you, you hurt them back. An eye for an eye. Somebody trash talks you, you trash talk back. And that you consider to be fair and just. It isn't. You are just lowering yourself to their way of communicating. And so those of us who understand it differently, learn to hold back a little bit. Yeah, Kimmy's saying if something doesn't happen, it's because it's meant to be. I agree with you, Kimmy. I'm it's like, so be it. right? Onwards, right? It would be nice, but really, white carpet for somebody who's an artist, maybe not. So Kerry's saying, that was my dad's motto, not mine. Yes, you had the choice to go with your dad's thinking or your own. You know, if your family thinks that an eye for an eye is okay, that's their right. But you know, that doesn't mean you have to agree with it. Kim's saying, I don't, but I get angry for a long time. Yes, your Jody, could you make a note? We need to do a little bit on forgiveness. How about that, Kimmy? Would that help you? Because my mom was like that, Kimmy. She'd get somebody did her wrong, and she would never forget. She would never forgive and never forget. And you know, it was just like wow. And you know, she was held captive. She was controlled by that negative emotion all her life. She didn't think she was, but she was. Yes, Kerry, and your mummy was so right, right? My mum's is so right, right? Kerry's saying her mum's motto is violence is never the answer. And that would be in words or deeds. All right. Because I think a lot of us say, well, I don't hit anybody. But boy, do you cut them off at the knees with your words. Jody was saying she's, you know, she's pretty good with her samurai sword. You know, you know, Jody and I so relate to that. I can remember being in a group therapy thing one time, and I really upset people just by breathing air, apparently. You know, and I'd go to the session, and they would attack me. And they didn't like the way I spoke. They didn't like my wisdom. They didn't like whatever. You know, they just didn't like me a lot, and they would attack me every time. And you know, it was so funny because I remember the therapist that was leading the group said to me, "Sal, these people are being horrible to you. Why are you not defending yourself?" I said, "It's not my stuff. It's theirs." And she smiled and went, "Well done." Right? I said, and I looked at her and I said, "You probably already know enough about me, and I, you know, used to be a professional speaker. So dealing with hecklers, that was my, you know, that's what I did. And I assure you, I have a binder this thick of one-line replies that could cut, you know, these people off at the knees. But why would I do that? I'm trying to learn not to. That's why I'm here." All right. So that's interesting. So Kerry is saying, I find forgiveness hard but doable. I have a harder time forgetting. I don't think you ever forget. And Kerry's also, and yeah, and Kimmy's saying she's been in the same situation. So you know, to me, the what I went to learn how to do for myself, but I wanted it to be in a safe environment, was to actually learn that when people attacked me, that I didn't have to respond. But you know, one day, um, it hit it hit at my soul. And I don't know if this has ever happened to any of you, but I literally dissociated. Have any of you ever had that happen? And you know, it's like you're in the room, but you're not. And apparently, I just sat there and I was doing this. I was just rocking. And I heard the therapist say to me, "Sally, you okay?" And you know, there was enough of me still functioning to say, "Obviously not." I don't quite know what happened, but when that person said whatever they just said, my whole body changed. and I can feel something has been, and a door has opened up that scares me a great deal. And the reason I was rocking is because that's self-soothing. Do any of you ever have any of you ever done it where you found yourself just going like this? You know, and if you do, it's your body's automatic reaction to soothing yourself, because you know when you were a baby and you were upset, people rocked you. Does that make sense? And so whenever you find yourself rocking when you didn't, you probably weren't even aware that you did it, but you realize, wow, I've started to rock. Know that that is your body trying to calm you down or help you survive. S- you pace to soothe. Okay. Beth has to walk it off. Interesting. Oh, Sarah does this. Now, funny, my brother does this when he's excited. Right? So you rub your hand. Do you rub your hands together this way, though, Sarah? Which way do you do it? Do you do it up and down, or like you're washing your hands? Interesting. How many of you've got a foot that does this? Like washing. Okay. Um, so that's why I asked what sort of way is it? When you do this, when you do this, Sarah, just know why. Just look at it and go, okay, that's my inner self trying to, it's been triggered at something. So, do you understand? The most important thing to do is to acknowledge that your body is trying to help you. So what happened was, when I was rocking like this, the therapist said, "Are you okay?" And I thought, really, duh, do I look okay? But I didn't. I said, obviously not. And the obviously not, because look at me, I was rocking. And she said, "Do you need any help?" And I said, "I don't think so. I'm going to do what I can to get regrounded, and then I'll join in with the group again." Now, the interesting thing was, the person who hit me that hard, I I don't know if you can imagine this. She never hit me again verbally. And when that group thing finished, she came and said, "I am so sorry." I said, "No, it's okay. You were just telling me what you thought, and it's your business, not mine, right? What you think of me is none of my business, really." And she said, "Yes, but I hurt you really badly." I said, "Yeah, for a second, my boundary wasn't up to protect me from you, but I'm not, I'm not, I can't control you. That's what I'm here to learn, is I cannot control you. I can only control myself." And I missed on that one. Somehow you got through. And she said, "I just want to say how sorry I am." I said, "Well, that's lovely. Thank you for that. I appreciate that." And she was never nasty to me again. I have to say that. I think what happened to me, by the way, my eyes were out on stalks. It was like a deer in the headlights. Um, and I literally was like this. And I think it frightened her, quite honestly, that she had done something that had created that. And so, in a strange way, it was a good thing. However difficult it was for me, I think it taught her something. All right, so let me see. Kerry's saying, "I mess with my hair when I start worrying, so I put it up to avoid that temptation." Good idea. I jiggle my leg and foot as well. Yes, I want to tell you, for the longest time, I used to do this with my one leg. Beth is saying, "I walk because every step I take feels like my upset emotions are behind me." Interesting. I walk away from them, all right? It must make me focus. on each step, like a meditation. I just keep moving forward. I think that's awesome. Do you know the funny thing is, I walk under different circumstances, Beth. If somebody phones me and I need to think, I start to walk. You know, I was a performer on stage for so many years. And I am what they tell me, a verbal genius. In other words, if I'm talking, things come to me that would not come to me if I'm sitting quietly. You know, so when I'm talking, when I'm moving, things come to me. So, for example, somebody phoned me for some help this week on something, and it was technical stuff. And you know, I found myself just walking up and down my house. And then I laughed and I went, wow, you must have stimulated my brain. And they said, why? I said, I probably walked a mile while you were talking to me. And so I want, if you can, I would like you to be more aware. That's what I'm trying to say. And so do you understand what Mahatma Gandhi said? An eye for an eye will only make the whole world blind. If you push against me and I push against you, and then you push back harder and I push back harder, where do we get to agree? I've always said, you know, the way to win is to fall away. They have nothing left to fight. When I say fall away, if you don't fight, they have nothing left to fight. They might throw a couple of arrows at you, but no one wins. You're quite right, right? No one wins. It's putting gas on the fire. So if you can see that, then start working to minimize that drama in your life. I think it's interesting. Kerry says that she plays with her hair when she's upset, so she puts it up. Sarah, have you ever heard about the trick about the rubber band? I just want to give you this one in case you don't know about it. Because you know, if you do this a lot, all right, it's what they call a tell. If okay, I'm going to talk to you about that. A tell is other people will see this motion from you and know that they've got control of you, right? Because you're doing it. So what you might want to try is find a loose elastic band. I don't mean one that's going to cut off your circulation. You understand what I'm saying here, Sarah? And whenever you find yourself doing this, go, oh, I'm doing this, take the elastic band and just stretch it and let it pop. What it will do is it will change your thinking. Do you understand what I'm saying? It will interrupt that subconscious pattern that's going on. Sending you a hug. And you know, that's really important to interrupt that. Um, Kimmy's saying, I rock when I'm worried, upset, or in thought. Right. Beth is saying that she walks and she also cleans because it's starting afresh and new. If I lose control, I have to, yeah, you don't have to. She says, I have to find control in something I'm doing so I can snap out of it. All right, you choose to, not have to. I choose to use that, you use that energy in a positive way. Yes, Kimmy cleans too. Um, it was one thing that I learned that Benji taught himself as well. And he says, you know, when he gets angry, he cleans. You know, his house can be right. And it's funny because, you know, that's how he does it. He doesn't let it go to waste. Because do any of you see that negative energy, if you use it productively, can be very helpful to you? What are the other tells that indicate to someone that they can control you? Well, I think anybody can, you know, some of us are more vulnerable to being controlled by others than others. Yeah. So let me think about that. If I see somebody whose foot's going like this, what do I know? They've got a nervous disposition. So if I were a manipulator, I'm pretty sure that I could do a number on them. If Yeah, but you can use it as a positive thing as well. If you happen to be out somewhere and you see somebody rocking like this, this is a person that would really appreciate a friend right now. Do you understand? So it's not all a bad thing. If I came across Sarah doing this, what do I know? Subconsciously, there's something upsetting her. I would probably walk up to her and say, "Hey, you okay?" "Yes, why?" "Oh, no, I just wondered." But she would automatically stop doing that. Sarah, the other thing is, if you forgot to take the elastic with you and you see yourself doing this, start counting in your head, not out loud. Yeah, they'll think you're a cracker. But start counting. There's been a lot of research done, Sarah, that anxiety is in a certain part of your brain, and if you start counting, it interrupts that ability to feel that worry. Right. Beth, very good point. Beth is saying it's more worrisome if someone doesn't help a self-soothing method. Self-soothing method is not easy to say. Try saying it fast 5 times. Self-soothing method, self-soothing. Anyway, self-soothing method, because they don't have an outlet. Yes, how many of you, the tell would be you cry. When somebody is confronting you, you cry. Okay? Emotionally intelligent people don't do that. So work at not doing that. I've always remember something a man told me one time. And he said, "Women don't fight fair." And I said, "What?" He said, "No, women don't fight fairly. They cry. And men have been taught not to cry, so it's not a fair fight. Because we do not have the tools to deal with it." I think that's really interesting. Right. And so just be aware, Nyasha, this isn't about that you've failed at anything. This is about we're all learning these things, right, together. So now, if somebody attacks me, I'm I'm literally saying to myself, I am going to think, I am not going to react, I am not going to cry. I will not give them control. But you know what I do instead? I say, "Ouch, that really hurt. I just want you to know that." What? Well, what you just said, I found that pretty hurtful, but it's your right to say it. I just need you to know that it hurts. Right. And Kimmy says, sometimes after it builds up, after I think about it, I cry. Yeah, it's okay to cry. As Beth so rightly said, that if you cry, your chances of having a heart attack are less. All right. Or if you do this, Sarah, right, when you're really upset and don't know it, it could save you from something much worse. I can remember when I was at school, I plucked out all my eyebrows while I was sitting in class. I'd be sitting there pulling out my eyebrows. Now, how many of you know that's that is subconscious stuff? All right, it's for some reason that pain. And how many of you know how that feels to pull out an eyebrow lash? But I can remember that the school actually got hold of my mum and said, we just need to warn you about this. There's something going on, and we don't know what it is, but it's subconscious. But Sal is busy pulling out her eyebrows. I can't remember what it was that was upsetting me, but it was true. The other thing is, Sarah, I'm so glad that you came, and if you should come back again, understand that we are always working on these things, right? We, especially on a Friday lunchtime, what we're trying to do is be more aware of them so we can start working on them, right? This is not about perfection. If you want perfection, you're dealing with the wrong person. And Kimmy, I think if you can put it in a compartment and go, okay, I really need to cry, but I'm not going to do it here, right? Yes, I think sometimes cutting can be conscious, but what it is I want to stop the emotional pain, so I will cause myself physical pain. So I think that that's what this was. If I hadn't been made aware of this, I probably could have ended up, doing something more harmful. So, but somebody who, and I've worked with people who are cutters, by the way. I've had doctors send me people who are cutters that didn't know that they were cutters. They just couldn't get them fixed. It was funny. Couldn't get them fixed, and they sent them to psychologists, and they couldn't fix them. And I have this one doctor who heard about the work that I do. She phoned me and said, I've got this patient, and I wonder if you'd see her. And I said, you do know I'm not a doctor? And she said, yeah, I know, but I want to get her some help. And I hear you are awesome at this stuff. And it's so funny because she sat in my living room. I'm not joking. We're sitting in my living room, and she said, that's it? We just sit here? I said, yeah. And she said, no desk? And I said, no. Oh. If you want a desk, we could go into my office, but I'd rather not. Anyway, and the funny thing was, within 20 minutes, she was telling me all about the cutting and everything else. And I said, do your parents know that you cut? No, they don't know. Wow. What about your doctor? Does your doctor know you cut? No. What about your shrink that you've been going to? Does your shrink know that you cut? No. I said, humor me. You got to tell me, if none of those people know that you're a cutter, why did you tell me within 20 minutes? Why? I need to know. And do you know what her answer was? It made me cry. I mean, I cried. She didn't make me cry. I cried because it touched my heart. She said, you care. I said, maybe I'm just pretending. She said, no, you care. And I said, the good news is that we will know when you start on your journey to being mentally in control of yourself. When you tell those people who are trying to help you that you cut, you need to let them know. Your doctor, your shrink, and your parents. By the way, when you tell your parents, expect them to get angry, and expect them to get angry because they didn't know. And they're going to be angry about that. How could they have missed it? So when they react like that, if they do, just smile and go, Sal told me you might get angry, But know that they're angry at themselves for having missed it. Makes sense. All right. Nyasha's saying, is there any way to shut down the subconscious mind? No, I don't think. But what it is, I think I wouldn't want to shut down my subconscious mind. It protects me a great deal. What I do believe that you would like to do is to stop the negative habits that you've got. And if so, what things that I'm saying to Sarah, little things that you can do to control. I talk to my inner child, Nyasha. When I see any of these, if I find myself sitting like this, I will actually say to my inner child, oh, so you're a bit scared about something, or you're very angry about something. What is it? Right? I want to know what my body is reacting to. And they call that the inner child. And And I think that is what you would like to do, is get your inner child to grow up a bit. How many of you know that's what we're doing with talking about emotional intelligence? That's what we're doing, is we're getting our inner child to get more confident and to understand that we have rights and it's okay to protect our rights, and it's, it's that we can choose things. So Nyasha, I would never recommend that you shut down your subconscious mind. How many of you found your subconscious mind is really helpful? And by the way, um, how many of you found that you can think about somebody and then they'll phone you? All right, your subconscious mind. I when I'm doing stuff, and for example, Erin will come into my mind, and I will 9 times out of 10 make the time just to drop her a little note and say, "I'm just sending you a hug," and she will write back to me and say, "How did you know?" I say, "I could just feel it." You see, that's my subconscious mind. Right? And I value that. So no, I would not want to ever shut down my subconscious mind. Right. Sharon says it always freaks out when that happens. Right. This is about when you're thinking about somebody and they suddenly phone. And Jody's saying, I often experience that. That doesn't surprise me from either of you, because I believe that both of you are very aware. And do you use it to your advantage? Do you use it for parking spaces and things? That's what I need to know. Because, I literally have done work with people where, I'm saying, we've all got a subconscious mind. Sharon, can you still drive? Okay. So, think about using it in a positive way. All right. Because this is very important. Yes. Okay, Sharon. So here's the thing. If you can still drive, next time you're in a parking, you're about to want a parking space, on your way to the place where you're going, visualize somebody leaving a parking space where you would like to park, not where you end up normally having to park, but where you would like to park, right? And visualize it. And you'll be amazed how many times as you go into the car park, somebody will pull out and you go, thank you, I knew that was mine. And you just think, I did it once, Sharon, when I was trying to go down to downtown Vancouver. And, I don't do that very often. But, and to do it in a car and have to park. And the most incredible thing was that I went around the block because I knew my car parking space was there. I just couldn't see it. I went round, and the second time I came around, I realized why I couldn't see it. It was the funniest thing. It was there. Hold on. So this is the block, and this was the building I needed to go into, and I knew it had street parking here. And so in my mind, as I'm traveling down this way, getting ready to turn here, I'm concentrating on this area here, all right, because that's the ideal parking. It was Vancouver, it was raining. So I concentrated on this being available to me. And as I came around the corner, Sharon, the second time, I realized that there was a big Coke truck here. The space was there, but I couldn't get to it, right? Because the Coke truck was blocking it. I burst out laughing, as you probably can imagine, and everybody probably thought I was insane. But I just burst out laughing and went, I forgot to say, and I should be able to get into it. So I went round the next time. Guess what I'm saying? I now saw this space here, Sharon, and said, now I'd like a parking space here that I can get into. And guess what? There was. So you understand, if you have faith. All right, Jody says, I will tell Lionel things that are going to happen, and then they do. And he looks at me like I have three heads. Yep. So do you also know there is a collective consciousness, right? So, and I think that's very important. It's like if you take this as your hand, okay, and these are all different people. There is a collective consciousness. In other words, if Erin is upset over here, all right, and Sal is over here, somehow or another, and I don't know how it works, I can feel that sometimes. Jody, you can see things that nobody else can see because you have that ability to tap into the subconscious mind. You don't do it intentionally. I used to be really quite upset about that, and I stopped talking about it because people thought I had three heads. But if you have that, we all have the ability. It's how much do you train that ability, and how much do you trust. And so that's really, really important to understand. So what I want to go back to, though, is this whole business about conflict. It was said by Henrik Ibsen, to live is to war with the trolls. It's like you are going to get attacked by people if you are alive. Does that make sense to you all? People are going to attack you because of their stuff. Now, the interesting thing is we add to it by our reaction to what they say. All right. So it's like they say it, and then what we do in our minds, without even checking out what they really meant, what we do in our minds just adds, that's the gas to the fire. And so that's why think and ask questions. Think first. Do I want to get in a fight here? No. Seek first to understand, all right? Make sure you ask the questions to understand it first. Practice doing that. All conflict can be traced back to someone's feelings getting hurt. How many of you agree with that? That all conflict, you can track it back to somebody's feelings getting hurt. Yes, and that is a really good point that Kimmy's making. Kids can do that, right? They can escalate. They can escalate very quickly, and so it's very important with children not to take. How many of you have had a child say to you, "I hate you"? They don't say that because you just told them you love them dearly and that they can go out and stay out until 2 o'clock in the morning. They normally say that when you have just told them they can't do something that they want to do. Then they hate you. Right? They don't hate you, they hate the rule you just put in place. And if you can see that, then it's easier to cope with. And so the question is, what do you do? I had a young person tell me to go away one day. They used two different words, but that's what the words meant. And my heart broke for them because I realized how upset they must have been to use those words on me because I knew they respected me. And so what I did was I left it for a little while, and then I went down and I apologized. And the young person said to me, "What are you apologizing for?" And I said, "I am apologizing for whatever I said that made you so angry that you used those words on me because I know that you normally wouldn't." Yes, now you see, Kimmy's saying that her grandson sometimes gets in her face and tries to get a reaction. And the best way, if that's what happens, I would just smile and say, "Are you trying to get a reaction out of me?" Not going to work today. Um, don't let them control you. That is the trick. It's quite simple. And if they are being really rude, this is called, "Please give me your phone." Why? Because there is no way you get to talk to an adult like that in my house. What you do in your house, not out of my control. But in my house, you do not speak to it. "Why are you taking my phone?" "Well, I want you to think about what you said, and when you're ready to apologize for it, I'll give you your phone back." Why? Because we know everybody's attached to their phones. How about this one? "I can see that the sadness has returned, and it's not beautiful." Sadness. Beautiful sadness is a myth. Sadness turns our features to clay, not porcelain. So if you can see somebody who is, maybe you are the aggressor, and if you watch people's reaction, right? If they sort of look like this, if they start doing this, um, if their feet start to do the, I sit in restaurants. I get fascinated by watching people, and it's amazing what you can tell about somebody if you look from the waist down. If you're looking in a restaurant, I just watch to see whose feet are doing this, how many people are constantly, shifting their weight and so forth. And it's just, I find it fascinating to study the body language of people. They look perfectly calm. It's like a swan, right? They look perfectly calm on top, but underneath, they are fighting to stay afloat. Shin said that, "I don't think avoiding conflict is not caring." How many of you care enough to avoid conflict? Care enough about your peace of mind, right? You care enough about your peace of mind not to allow conflict. You know, Kimmy, your grandson has said he will call the police on you to make conflict. How old is this grandson? Mm. So what do you do? Ignore him. Yeah. I really, it sounds to me that you have some children and grandchildren that don't have the manners that you were taught. And that's very difficult for any of us. And, people will say to me, "Well, you can't expect them to change. That's what they're allowed to do at home." And I say, "You're completely wrong on that." I have literally had children in my home that were allowed to do all sorts of things in their home, but I give them the rules of my house, and I expect them to abide by them. And if they don't, they're not invited back. All right. And this is called, and I'm not expecting them to be perfect, because children will be children, but if you let burp out at my dining room table, I will say, "Excuse me, we don't do that here." All right. If you want to burp, go to the washroom and do that there. Yeah, and the kid that came in and got up on my glass dining room table and started dancing on it, and it's just like, really, get off my table. Oh no, she's having fun. That is a glass table. If that cracks, it could kill her. If you can't see that danger, mother, then you and your child need to leave my home. And I did. I threw her out. She was a neighbor. I said, "I'm sorry. If you allow a child to do that, don't do it in my house, because guess who is you're going to be suing? Me. I don't have control of your child. You do. So do me a favor. Get the child off my table." Well, I think that's true. Then you both need to leave. Okay. And I that was it. I didn't want her. I didn't want that drama. But I literally have had children that will behave totally differently when they come to visit me, and respect me for that, right? Yeah, I don't care if at home you're allowed to flick your peas across the table at one another. If you're allowed to do that at home, good for you. You don't get to do it in my house. Okay? And I think it's important. I think that people understand that there are different rules in different places, and I think it's important that we do that. And of course, Kimmy, your parents do not back you up because they do not discipline their children. If they discipline their children, your grandchildren will not be talking to you in that way. All right? Your grandchildren have no respect for their elders, from what I gather. So, it's like, if that's what they've been taught, don't blame the children. And there's no point in blaming the parents, because that's not going to change. All you can do is protect yourself. Bella Andre said, "I've always wondered why love has to be so full of conflict and strife. Why can't love just be simple? Why can't it just be as pure as two people who realize they can't live as well or as happily apart as they can together?" I think that's beautiful. Steve Godier said, "We don't get harmony when everybody sings the same note. Only notes that are different can harmonize. The same is true of people." How many times have you heard me talk about my friendship with my friend Marnie, and how I love going to lunch with her, because 9 times out of 10, we will be talking about something and we will totally disagree. And it's so interesting with Marnie. Right? Why? Because Marnie doesn't need to be right. She just has an opinion. So she'll go, "Yeah, but 1 and 1 equals 2." And I'll go, "Really?" When I don't agree with that, I'll go, "Really? Interesting. What makes you say that?" And I'll find out deeper what makes her think that. And she's a very wise person. And 9 times out of 10, I go, "That's an interesting point." I don't have to agree with her. I don't have to say you're wrong. I just go, "That's an interesting point. Let me give that some thought." You see, but she and I can do that throughout a complete meal and not upset each other. Why? We don't take each other anything like personally, because we know it's not about attacking one another. It's "Hey, I've got this opinion. Oh, interesting. You've lived a different life. Why? Why? What makes you think like that? I want to know." But it doesn't mean she's right. It's just her opinion. And then I'll go, yeah, but I think da 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 da. Doesn't mean I'm right. It's just my opinion. Right? We don't have that need to be right. We just carry on talking. The talking is more important to us than being right. We don't look for drama. Yes, a good debate is amazing and enlightening, right? And that's why, to me, um, that is what we're aiming for, right? I don't ask you to agree with me. I ask you to be respectful. All right. How many times have you heard me say the reason I came onto YouTube was because I knew that the trolls would not get to us on YouTube. I think in all the time we've been here on YouTube, we've had one, maybe two that slipped through. Am I correct? We're not getting that constant hit from the trolls, trying to get their jollies by being rude to us and using, horrible pictures or using terrible language or whatever, right? It's like I didn't want to keep having that drama. I'm here to try and help. I'm here to learn what's troubling people and to try and help. Okay. So I want to go back to what was said. How many of you would like us to do some work on forgiving and forgetting? How to do better at both of those? Because those are two really good subjects, I think, that we can do. And by the way, if any of you have mastered the skills, feel free to give me some input as to how you do it so that I can pass it on. So we're going to work on that one. We'll do that one for next week. If that we'll do forgiving. The forgetting one, I think, is very interesting because forgetting means that you trust them again. Would that be true? Because I think forgetting is about a trust level. But I honestly don't believe we ever forget. However, I think we're incredibly wrong, and I'll talk about that when I do the thing. I think we use that knowledge badly, right? Well, you remember back in June of 2001, you said that, really, there's certain things that you just need to let go of, right? Letting go, not forgetting is control in some ways. Yes, isn't that interesting? Beth is saying, I always thought that the presidential debate is like watching children argue back and forth. It's not a debate. It's like who can put the other person down more. That has definitely happened in the age of your current person. And when I say that is that, it used to be a debate, even though they might throw some slings and arrows, they didn't all talk over one another. They didn't all get into this very drama infested discussion. I think we've lost a lot of civility. And, there is nothing wrong with being civil to one another. And I think when you can be civil to one another, then what you have is some level of emotional intelligence. If you're constantly fighting and attacking people who don't agree with you for whatever reason, you do not honor their right to have their opinion. And that is what I like to sort of just make sure you know. That when you cannot listen to criticism without attacking back, it means that you constantly hear feedback that might be helpful to you as negative. And one of the things about being emotionally intelligent, one of the things about being grown up is that we are able to take criticism and not let it ruin a relationship. It's just their point of view. And I think we all can do with working on that a little bit more. That is my belief, which is why I took the subject. But Nyasha, I really want to thank you because, you are very good about bringing up the things that trigger you and things that might help you. And I really think that everybody benefits from learning these things a bit more. So I want to thank you for being part of our group because it's really important. Beth, love the honesty and I love the growth. By the way, Beth, how was little Lily Rose, right? It was her birthday yesterday, I think. Am I right? Why do I think that? 1010 rings a bell. I think it was her first birthday yesterday. Anyway, if it was, happy birthday. Hope she had a great day. I think that part of the emotional intelligence is learning to be civil, not take everything so personally. It's not all about us. You know, I quite often get in a situation where somebody can be really snippy with me. And, you know, somebody will look at me and say, wow, I can't believe you didn't react to that. And I said, you know, I don't know whether his wife crashed the Mercedes this morning. What? Well, I don't know what's happened in his day that's making him that snippy. It's probably got nothing to do with me. So I chose not to react back. I chose just to smile and thank him for his opinion. Does that make sense, people? We just don't know. Kim, I think that you were quite right to stop your grandchildren, to stop babysitting your grandchildren if they cannot act in a respectful manner. I think that is wonderful that you've stopped playing babysitter to them. I don't care who gets upset about it. Because if you cannot teach your children to be respectful of adults, why would I tolerate them in my house? Quite honestly, you could be putting yourself at risk for terrible abuse. And I, for one, don't think you need to. Niasha's saying, no problem, sure. And I think the reason that they affect me on a very deep level. Yes, absolutely. You know, Niasha, the reason that you get triggered and you fight so hard is because it hurts so much. As soon as you can learn that it's, you know, obviously if somebody is criticizing your behavior, if a boss is saying you're not doing your work properly, you need to listen. That's a whole day. You don't have to agree. You just listen, you know, and just say, okay, I hear you on that. What behavior would you like to see that would let you know that I am trying to improve that? Right, Kimmy. And the reason that you've stopped doing the babysitting is because, and I quote, I am tired of the disrespect and it is bad for my health. Kimmy, that is called growing up and not being a victim. Wow. You know, that is your right as a human being. You don't have to accept abuse, right? And if the parents can't teach their children manners, then they need to find somebody else to look after them. It's not you. I'm very proud of you, Kimmy. When did you do that? I can, you know, I'm trying to imagine the courage it must have taken for you to say, I will not let this continue. You know, the courage. So so it's in our time together that you've done it. I'm very proud of you, Kimmy. I really am. And you know, I know the courage that it took for you to set down that boundary, but I also know the freedom that you felt when you finished putting down that boundary. And so I am really proud of you. And you are right. It was not something you deserved, and it is detrimental to your health to be abused. Yeah. You know, so I'm just overwhelmed. That's made my day. Tears in my eyes stuff. Um, and Kimmy, it is stories like that keep me going. All right. Whenever I think, well, I don't know, should I continue? I remember stories like this, right? About um, Jody turning herself into an emotional pretzel to try and please people. And, for you to stand up and say, I deserve to be treated with respect. Um, all right. So the other thing is, I'm hoping that people can see there is hope, that you just keep listening to the stuff and eventually you will understand it at a whole different level. Niash is saying, I'm working on understanding that. Whatever others think of me isn't my business, but their own. But you're not there yet. I totally understand that, Niasha. That doesn't mean that you're slow or stupid. All right. I just want to make sure because I've noticed that when you don't get a concept immediately, you think it might be because you're slow or stupid or whatever it is that goes in your mind. It's not about that. It takes practice to hear it enough times. And then one day, like Kimmy, you're going to go, I think I know what she's talking about. So one day, Kimmy, you got up and said, enough is enough. Okay. Enough is enough. And did any of you ever see that movie with J Lo? Was it J Lo or no? Maybe somebody else. The movie is called Enough. Have any of you ever seen that movie? Who was in that? Hang on a second. I thought it was J Lo, but I think now that I might be wrong. Oh. I got to find this out. Hang on a second. Well, it was Jennifer Lopez. Yes. Okay, so the reason, if you get a chance to see it on Netflix or whatever, it was about her realizing that she had had enough of being abused. Now, I don't recommend. I don't recommend what she did, but it's a good movie to watch because it's that moment where you go, "That's enough." Right? I have had to hear, Kimmy, you reached that level, but the interesting thing is, I think you always knew it was wrong. You just didn't know what to do about it. And so, Niasha, don't worry that you're still working on it. We're all still working on it. All right? And just keep listening and keep hearing. Right. Kimmy's saying it took many years. I was doing it because my daughter could not afford to pay for a babysitter. What a pity you gave her that luxury. All right? Because if you had not done it because they weren't polite to you, she would have taught them manners a lot earlier. Yeah, I should have. No, Kimmy, you couldn't have done it earlier. You didn't know what to do about it. How could you have done it earlier, honey? You had to learn what to do before you could take action. So don't you dare shoot all over yourself like that. All right, so listen to Niasha's honesty on this one. I think we can all relate to that. Niasha's saying, yes, when I don't hear back from somebody right away, I tend to believe that maybe that individual is mad at me. I don't know why, but I do. That is your fear. Do you know something, Nyasha? My closest friends I don't talk to very often. Right? I never think that they don't care about me or don't love me. I just don't need to be in contact with them all the time to prove that. I know what the relationship is. And they know that I am not one of those people that are going to be in your face every day. Um, right? But what they know is, boy, if they need me, they got me. Now, interestingly enough, I probably talk to Jody more than any other human being on this earth. Isn't that interesting? And that is because the connection that we have on Dear Mama Sal, and as you all know, she does a great job of being our admin. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Jody. And but it's just like we sort of set up this daily routine where we support each other with our illnesses, and so that is a different relationship than just pure friendship, because our communication is about supporting each other. Yes, we're friends, but over and above that, we are supporting one another. So I know somebody cares how many knee lifts I can do. I know somebody cares about what my blood sugar was this morning. I know that Jody cares, right? And so to me, that is a different relationship in a lot of ways from a lot of people. It's a deeper one in a lot of ways as well. So I'm very grateful for that. And Jody, thank you for all that you've taught me. I couldn't believe it yesterday. I probably had more carbs than I would normally have. And yet my blood sugar balanced out at just over 7. I think 7.3 this morning. See how much you've taught me. I can even eat the carbs now and still keep on track. Yeah, Jody's saying, even if we didn't speak every day, I'd know you still had my back. Yes, I'm glad. The same, I always think that about Erin as well. Kimmy's saying, I've even learned not to care about what my ex and his family think about me. I had to learn that they are not perfect and have their faults and problems too. Yes. That is letting go. You will never forget that hurt, but you've let go of that need to be right. That is a really important lesson. So, in terms of conflict, everybody, we're all going to have it all the time. We had it with all the trolls. We had a lot of conflict. And I could ignore a lot of it. But then one day I woke up and went, why do I do this to myself? Why do I waste half a broadcast trying to ignore or control trolls? Do you understand? And I thought, I don't need to do this. I can go to YouTube and YouTube will control them. And I believe for me, it was a really good decision. All right, so Niesh is saying, I know I don't really expect them to always respond once they've got something going on, but that, for instance, this moment, I'm trying not to let others take advantage of me. Yeah, be patient with yourself, Niasha. Keep talking about it and be patient. You are doing a great job, and the trick is to be patient enough to learn the skill. You did not learn to walk on day one. If somebody turned to you on day one and said the way you walk is stand up and do this. No, it took you a year to learn how to walk. Right? Or more. I don't know. Your muscles had to strengthen. You had to play with things that strengthened your muscles. You did all sorts of things before you could actually walk. Intellectually, you knew, somebody showed you that, you just stand up and walk on 2 feet. But your muscles were not ready for it. And I like to think of it that way, Niasha. That you know that you want to improve these things and you're doing things to improve them. But you're doing the reading, you're doing the listening, you're doing those things. Sometimes I want to tell you some of the things that Wayne Dyer taught me when I was 20, I'm only really getting now. I don't think I'm stupid because of that, and I don't think I'm slow. What I think was I needed to live my life and continue to do these things until it made more sense. And so I encourage you all, not only to help yourself, but to pass it forward and help others. Right? Because I do believe that we all suffer from conflict and we all need conflict resolution. And I also believe that most of us create way too much drama in our lives. We allow these things to happen. And one day you're going to go, no, I don't need this anymore. I don't need this much drama in my life. I'm going to live my life differently. I'm either going to get out of the way of the drama, in other words, just block the drama out and not react to it, or I'm going to move myself physically out of that line of fire. So keep working on the work, everybody. We'll be back tonight at 7 to smile a bit. But I really thank you for coming to do these Friday lunchtime broadcasts. We will definitely do forgiving as a subject next week. And I appreciate that feedback. And thanks to Kerry for mentioning that. All right, everybody. So have a great afternoon, and I'll see you this evening. Thank you, Jody, for being a great admin as usual. I could do it without you, but I'm glad I don't have to. Because I'd have to find somebody else to do it. Right. This is DearMamaSal saying big hugs. Thank you all for being here. Bye-bye for now.